right, then I'll go to my screen. All right, let's move that out. All right, y'all, so this one wants me to graph this, so I'm going to write this problem down real quick. 8y plus 4x equals a -4. And it wants me to plot it by points, so let me go and we'll work this out real quick, and then we'll come back and put our answer in. So the thing I would do to this would be to solve it for the y. Then once you solve it for the y, you can use the calculator to graph it or find you some points, okay? So to solve this for the y, I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So that'll bring down to 8y. That's going to cancel. Now, these are not like terms, so I'm just going to do -4x minus my 4. So basically, you're moving the 4x to the other side and changing its sign is all we did on that spot. Now, I got to turn the 8y into a 1y, so we're going to have to divide everybody by 8. So that, notice I get my 1y. -4h will reduce to a -1/2 x. And then minus this 4/8 will also turn into a 1/2. Okay, so now at that point, you could go to your calculator and put in -1 divided by 2 x, and then minus 1 divided by 2. So be careful. That has to be the negative button on the first minus. That has to be the subtraction key, okay? All right, so now if I wanted some points to plot, I could hit second, graph, and pull up a table. And notice I can plot points like -3, 1. So I'm going to pick out some of these good x's when I graph it, because I don't want to do those decimals. So I would probably pick like -3, 1, -1, 0. There's a 1, -1. Any of those points would be good. I'm trying to avoid the points with the decimals on them, okay? All right, so I got me a few points. What we would do, go to our MATLAB. So you click it to enlarge it. And it's going to pull up a graph. So remember, since this is just a y equals -1/2 x minus 1/2, the x does not have an exponent on it, so that's going to be a straight line tool. And then, y'all, I just got to plot 2 of them points. So I'm going to plot my -3, 1. So I go over here to -3 and then up 1. And then I would plot that -1, 0. So let's go over here to -1, and 0 is right on the line. So once you've done that, you would save that and move on. And let's see what number 2 has here. So this one wants me to graph y equals x squared plus 5. So if you did this one by hand, since you got that exponent of 2 in here, we know that's going to be the parabola. So on these graphs, I told y'all to always pick -1, 0, and 1. Always on these squared graphs, okay? So then you would put in your numbers and see what you get on the y values. Just remember, y'all, when you put that -1 in there to check it, so I'm going to punch in -1. So I would use parentheses around my -1. Anytime you put a negative number on that calculator, use parentheses. Square that, and then add 5. So when I hit enter, I'm going to get 6. So let's put a 0 in there. 0 squared plus 5. So when I put the 0 in, I get a 5. And then when we put the 1 in, we got 1 squared plus 5. So that should be what? 1 plus 5 give me 6. If you're doing this problem right, you will notice that you get symmetry on these graphs, okay? So I got my 3 points. Let me go to that graph and plot that. All right, I'm gonna click it to enlarge it. All right, so remember, x squared, use the 3-point quadratic tool. Click that. Now the first point I had to do was that center point 0, 5. So I'm gonna come over here to 0 and go up to 5. Then I'm gonna do the two sides. I'm gonna do -1, 6. So -1 up 6. And then I had a +1, 6. Once you put that third point on there, it's going to make that parabola and draw it for you. So then we would save that one and move on to the next. So probably another graph. So this is y equals the absolute value of x plus 5. All right, so let's go work that one. So absolute value of x plus 5. If you do this one by hand, the middle number needs to be whatever makes inside those absolute values equal 0. So the way to make that inside there equal 0, that would be a -5. And then I would probably just pick a -4 and a -6. So your middle number needs to be what makes that equal 0, okay? So now to check these answers, I'm going to put in a -4 first. So to get absolute value, you can hit the math button, arrow over the number, and the very first thing you see is ABS, hit enter, and then put -4 plus 5. So I got -4 plus 5 in there. That's going to give me an absolute value of 1. Then I would put the -5 in there. So math, arrow over the number, enter. That would be -5 plus 5 inside the absolute value. Hit enter. That's going to give me a 0. Now remember, absolute value uses the V tool. So these graphs are also going to be symmetric. So when we put that -6 in, so math, arrow over, enter, -6 plus 5, notice it's going to give me another 1. So I've got my 3 points, so let's go graph that. Now I will say what's nice on this one, let me show you when I click it. What's nice on this one, if you notice, the absolute value tool only has 2 points on it. So all we need to draw is 2 of the points. But you got to start with that middle point, -5, 0. So I'm going to go to -5, 0 and stay there. And then just do one of your sides. So I'm going to do that -4, 1. So what's nice on the absolute value tool, when you do one side, it's automatically going to put that other side up for us, okay? So I use 3 points just so I can see that symmetry happening on it. And y'all watch this. On the calculator on that problem, I could have did math, arrowed over to absolute value, and then put in a x plus 5. Went to my table by hitting second graph. So notice I want this y values where I start seeing the zeros at, and there's that 0. So if I go one past it, notice my 3 numbers were -6, -5, -4, and they got what, a 1, 0, 1 like we got. So save that, and then let's move on to the next. All All right, so they want to know if this correspondence is a function. So for that to be a function, every one of these domain values, -2, 4, and 6, can only have one and only one y value. So I would start with the -2. -2 has one range value of 2. 4 has one range value of 2. 6 has one range value of 2. Although they share the same range value, all these domain values only have one range. So this would definitely be yes. So then you would look at it, because each element in the domain corresponds to exactly one element in the range, which is what we said. So we would pick C. They mixed it up on D and they said the range has one domain. Well, y'all, this one range value has 3 domains. So that's got to be false, okay? So it's got to only be C on that one. Every domain value can only have one range value. All right, so they want me to find the indicated output. So for number 5, they're giving me f of x equals 2x squared minus 4x. I'm going to find f of 0, f of a -1, and f of a +2. So let me go do this work. So 2 ways to do it. One way is by hand, so put a 0 in for each of these x's. So you got 2 times 0 squared minus 4 times 0. Well, 0 squared is 0, and 0 times 2, that's going to give me a 0, minus 4 times 0 is 0, and let's see, 0 minus 0 is a 0. But remember, you got these calculators, so all you had to do was put a 2, put your 0 in parentheses, square that, and then minus 4 times that 0. Hit enter, you will get 0. F of -1 wants me to take that 2 x's and put a -1 in for it. So -1 squared would be -1 times -1, which is a +1, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now we're subtracting a 4 times a -1. So watch this. These are like signs. So when you subtract and multiply by a negative, that's going to make that a +4. And then y'all, 2 plus 4 will give us 6. So let's see, 2 parentheses -1 squared minus 4 times parentheses -1. So anytime you put negative numbers in, use that negative on the bottom, and we still get our 6. Then finally, f of 2, I'm going to put a 2 in for the x's. So 2 squared is 4. 4 times that 2 will give me 8. Minus 4 times 2 is 8. And y'all look at that. 8 minus 8 would give me 0. So here we go. 2 times 2 squared minus 4 times that 2. Hit enter and we get our 0. So we want to go put those 3 in. All right, so let's see. I got what, a 0. F of -1, I got a 6. And then f of 2, we got another 0. So you put your 3 answers in and move to the next. All right, so let me write this down. They want us to graph this. And they're giving us some x and y values to use. They're giving me -2 negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So basically, this problem is 5 problems in one because you got to put each of them numbers into your equation and see what values we get. So let's go and work that part, and then we'll come back and plot 2 of them points. So this problem, you would start with negative 2. So f of negative 2 will equal negative 1 plus absolute value of a negative 2. Well, absolute value of negative 2 is a positive 2, so I get negative 1 plus 2, and negative 1 plus 2 gives you a positive 1. Now remember, this is the absolute value graph, so in the long run, it better look like a V and have some kind of symmetry to it, okay? So we put the negative 1 in for the absolute value. So f of negative 1 will equal negative 1 plus absolute value of a negative 1. So that would be what? A negative 1 plus absolute value negative 1 is a positive 1. Negative 1 plus 1 would give us 0. All right, what's next? F of 0 will equal negative 1 plus the absolute value of 0, which will be negative 1. Absolute value of 0 is 0. And negative 1 plus 0 gives you a negative 1. Now, we'll knock this out on the graph in a second. All right, next was f of 1. That's going to equal negative 1 plus absolute value of 1. So let's see what we got. That's going to give me a negative 1 plus 1. And then negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So it looks like that 0, negative 1 is going to be my middle point, and I'm starting to get my symmetry. So I'm expecting that we should get a 1 on this one. So let's see. F of x. Whoops, I'm doing f of 2, my bad. F of 2 will equal negative 1 plus absolute value of 2, which will give me negative 1 plus 2. And y'all, negative 1 plus 2 is a positive 1. So notice I did get symmetry. I got my negative 1 in the middle, and then I got zeros, and then I got 1s outside of that. So since this is the absolute value tool, when you graph it, we only need 2 of these points. So let me go and show you what I would do to that. So I'm going to click it to enlarge. So absolute value is the V. And you can sort of arrow over them or go over them, and they'll sort of tell you what they are, okay? Now remember, absolute value, I got to do my middle point first. So I got to do the one where I had the 0, negative 1. So 0, negative 1 is going to put me right there. So click that. And then I'm going to do my right side, which was 1, 0. So 1, 0 will be right on the x-axis, and click that. So then I would save it. And then y'all, I should have put my points in, but y'all see my numbers. I would have put a 1, 0, negative 1, 0, positive 1 on that. And then I would have actually graphed it, okay? All right, so yes, we want to move on. But it will tell y'all forgot to put your points in if you're all doing that, okay? All right, number 7 here has f of x equals negative x squared minus 6. And once again, they're giving me, it looks like the same 5 numbers, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. All right, so same thing. So since the last one I worked out and showed you, you could do the same thing on this, and you could put the negative and in parentheses negative 2, square that, minus 6. When you hit enter, that'll give you a negative 10. And And then do that again, negative, and then put in that -1, square it, minus 6. So are y'all noticing what I'm doing to this? I'm keeping that negative in the problem, and then I'm putting in my negative numbers to square.
Mr. Eugene, can we
Yeah.
see? Can we see your paper?
Okay, so let me, oh man, I do that every time. Every time. All right, so let me show you what I'm doing here. If you're doing these on the calculator, you can put this negative automatically as a negative down here. Then, since I'm putting in a negative number, I'm going to put that in parentheses, and I put in my -2. Then I squared it, and then I did what? Minus the 6. So that when I hit enter, that gave me what? A -10. So what I wanted to show y'all, when you got a problem like this with an x squared and it's got a negative there, when you put these negative numbers in, you're going to have 2 negatives in a row, okay? But you can't make that a positive because of this exponent. So you got to square it first. So -1 times -1 gave you 1. And then that 1 times that negative is how they're keeping that negative value, okay? So watch this. Negative times -1 squared minus 6 is actually going to give me a -7. Because this negative kept this thing negative, okay? So you got to follow order of operations and do this exponent here before you do that multiplying. All right, so when you put a 0, 0 squared is 0, and 0 minus 6 is going to give us a -6. Then I would put the 1 in. Be careful on that. When you put in a 1, you still got that negative there. So put the negative, then do 1, square that, minus 6. So when you hit enter, that's going to give me a -7. But remember, you got an x squared, so we knew this was going to look like a parabola, which means that's going to be my center point apparently. I got -7 on each side. On each side of that, I should get what? A -10. So here we go. We're going to do negative, put in the 2 for the x, square that, minus 6. So when I do that, I do get a -10. So y'all watch this. Hit y equals, clear that, and let's put this in. Negative x squared minus 6. And let's go to the table. Second graph. Now they started at -2, so I'm going to go and start mine at -2 up there. Whoops, I went too far, didn't I? So let me arrow up one more to get that -2 back down. All right, so there's -2, which gave me a value of -10. -1 was -7. 0 gave me -6. 1 gave me -7. 2 gave me -10. So if you're not good at doing this algebra stuff, plot that thing on there and graph it, and then get your values off that table. All right, so let's see if I can do this right. Let me share my screen for the problem.
Mr. Eugene,
So y'all see?
when I'm putting that stuff in my calculator, it keeps giving me an error.
Okay, so what's the error saying?
It keeps going to the minus sign in front of the 6.
Okay, so make that subtraction and not the negative.
I'm putting subtraction and then parentheses -2 squared and then the minus sign 6, and it keeps going back to that number. I mean, to that sign.
So what you need to do is put the negative key first into parentheses, and then do your number and square it.
Okay.
And then for the subtraction, use the subtraction key by the addition.
Okay, let me get there. So you said put the subtraction sign in parentheses too?
Okay, so what number are you putting in for that x?
It's been doing it since -2, so.
So you're doing f of -2?
Yeah.
Okay, so watch this.
Can you see that, or is it?
Let me think here. Okay, so now is your problem the same, negative x squared minus 6?
Yes.
Okay, so you're actually doing the one I'm doing. All righty.
Mhm.
So watch what I'm going to do to find this f of negative 2, okay? So that would really be your negative key. Then you would have to put in your negative 2. We're going to square that and then subtract 6. So on this calculator, let me clear that screen. The first negative can never be that subtraction. It's always got to be this down here. So always hit that negative down there first, and it puts a little bitty negative looking thing on there.
Uh-huh.
And then put parentheses. Since the 2 is negative, we got to use the negative again that's in those parentheses and put in our negative 2. All right, then I would close those parentheses and square that. Now,
I got it.
then when you use the minus 6, you actually got to use the subtraction key and do the minus 6. So you see how they're different sizes on there? Your negatives are sort of short. So just remember, y'all, you cannot ever start it with subtraction, because if you start anything with a subtraction on it, it's going to try to pull your last answer up and subtract that number from it because it don't know what you're subtracting from. But if you wanted a negative 6, you could always put that negative down there in the parentheses, you know, and it'll put it up there quick.
Thanks.
So the calculator's not bad. It's just knowing when to use those certain keys, I guess you would say. All right, also to graph it now, didn't I put that in my y equals a while ago? Negative x squared minus 6. So if I want to see the graph, I can just hit graph on the calculator. And when I'm done, it better be sort of upside down looking like that one, okay? And it is the parabola, so I'm going to grab my parabola. The first point I'm going to put is that 0, negative 6 that was in the middle. So there's 0, negative 6, enter. And then I'm going to do my 1, negative 7. So there's 1, go down to negative 7. And then I'm going to go on the other side and do a negative 1, negative 7. So remember, use those center points to graph it actually. And then you can save that and move on. Okay, and I'm still going to move on. I'm not going to waste time putting all them points in that we done found all them values. So they want to know, is this graph a function? If it's a function,
You should come sit with me.
you're going to run a vertical line left to right. And that vertical line cannot intersect that graph more than once. But notice, if I go left to right with a vertical line, which is up and down, right here, in that anywhere to the right of that little peak there, you're going to hit that graph twice with a vertical line everywhere. So let me try to draw that real quick. That way y'all can actually see what I'm wanting y'all to do to that. So on that graph, I would take my vertical line and I'm just going to go left to right with it. But you notice I'm intersecting it on the top and on the bottom. So since I intersected that twice, this is going to be no, not a function. Remember, my functions can only intersect that once everywhere, okay? So then we go in and put what, a no, and then we go to the next. All right, so this one, actually, we should be able to do everything on the screen here. So let me move this out of my way. So the first thing they want me to do is find f of 2. So they're saying when your x is 2, what's the y value? So let's go over here. I'm going to zoom my graph in a little bit by hitting that magnifier. So f of 2, I find 2 on the x-axis and I go straight up and see what that y value is. And let's see, if I'm up to 2 and I go straight up, I get a y value of 4, which means f of 2 is going to equal 4. Now, they want to know, what's the domain? The domain is all the x values that are in this graph. But y'all look, that's an arrow going that way forever. There's an arrow going left forever. So all these x's are going to be in my domain. So when I have all x's in my domain, I come down here and say the domain is all real numbers. Okay. The next one says, for what x values is f of x equal 1? So this time they're giving me the y value of 1, and I got to find what x's have a y value of 1. So come up here on the y-axis to where the 1 is, and go straight to the right and see what numbers are going to be on that line. And if y'all notice, I got 2 points that are going to be on that line. The first one looks like it's going to be when x is 5. So I would come over here and put my 5. And then since I got another one, I got to use the comma. So the first one was 5. If I go straight down my line to the right, I hit it at 7 on the x-axis. So I got 5 and 7. Okay, so part A, f of 2, you looked for the y value. Part C, they're giving you the y value. You got to find the 2 x values. All right, then it says, what's the range? Well, the range is all the y values, but notice that graph does not go below the x-axis. So since the range is the y values, we got to figure out what that smallest y value is on that line, and that's going to be 0. So from 0, your y values go up towards infinity. So it looks like our range is going to be any number that is greater than or equal to 0. Remember, the x-axis is the 0 for the y-axis, okay? So it's going upwards. It's got to be greater than or equal. So I would pick B on that one. And then the smallest y value was a 0 since it was touching the x-axis. All right, y'all, then you would move on to the next. All right, what's this say? Find the domain. So these are not bad. G of x equals 7 over 6 minus 5x. So we're finding the domain, and they're putting it in set builder notation. So here we go. Remember, on the domain, there was only 2 things you're worried about, and you have one of them, which is a fraction. So if you're looking for the domain and you have a fraction, you take that bottom, 6 minus 5x, and we say it cannot equal 0. We solve that, and once we solve it, we got the number that we cannot put into that fraction, okay? So to solve this, I want to subtract 6. So negative 5x cannot equal a negative 6. And then solve that by dividing by that negative 5. So that I get an x cannot equal. Remember, these 2 negatives will make that a positive 6/5. Now, I didn't do nothing with the top, so you're not going to do nothing with the top of that fraction. The only thing that makes a fraction undefined is if the denominator equals 0. All right, so let's see if I can get y'all shared back to the screen. So notice over here, X cannot equal 6/5, which is what we got, so we know it would be A. But notice right here, they messed with the top, which we didn't. This one right here, C, they're using greater than or equals. Well, that's not true. It could be less than 6/5 and still work. It just cannot equal to 6/5. And then this one they're saying, well, can't equal 0. Well, the whole bottom can't equal 0. But the X could actually equal 0 and make that work, okay? Because 5 times 0 is 0, and 6 minus 0 would be 6. So that don't make it undefined. So the only number that would make it undefined would be that 6/5. All right, then we're moving on. So I think I had a few domains, so let me see. Oh no, this one they're giving me. So let me write down my problem. F of X equals negative 9X plus 4. G of X equals X squared plus 16. I'm going to find F of a negative 1 divided by G of a negative 1. All right, so let's share this screen. All right, so F of negative 1 divided by G of negative 1 means they want me to take these X's and put negative 1s in for them. And this will look like a fraction. On top of my fraction, I'm going to have negative 9 times negative 1 plus 4. Okay, so negative 9 times the negative 1 plus 4. The bottom will be negative 1 squared plus 16. Now I'm going to show you all this one on the calculator in a second, but on the calculator you got to use parentheses around the top and the bottom of this, okay? But first let me do the top. Negative 9 times negative 1 is a positive 9 plus 4. On the bottom, negative 1 squared is a positive 1 plus my 16. So now, let's see what we get on top. 9 plus 4 is 13. 1 plus 16 is 17. And 13 over 17 will not simplify. All right, one way to do this is to put this top in parentheses. So start the top out in parentheses, and then do negative 9, parentheses, negative 1, close the little parentheses, plus 4, and then close the main parentheses. Then we got division, so hit the division, and then do parentheses for the bottom. Inside the parentheses on the bottom, I had a negative 1 squared, so I'm going to put it in parentheses and square it, and then do plus 16, close parentheses. So it looks pretty much like it. Hit enter. It gives you a decimal, but remember, if you hit math and enter twice, it'll turn it into a 13/17. And then y'all, the last way to do it, if you didn't want to mess with all the parentheses, hit alpha y equals, and it brings up an ND, hit enter on that. Notice it makes it look like a fraction, so I can do negative 9, parentheses, negative 1, plus 4, so there's my top. Arrow down to the bottom, I can do parentheses, negative 1 squared, plus my 16. So that looks just like it when I hit enter. It gives me the answer in fraction form because I use that fraction bar, okay?
Mr. Eugene, you
Yeah.
said hit alpha y equals and then do ND.
ND, hit
Okay.
enter. And then
Okay,
that makes
that's
it look
what
like, and then that should make it look like a fraction for you when you start.
Yes, sir. And that's whenever I don't want to use the parentheses.
Right, right. Because sometimes you get a lot of parentheses running around, and you might have some opened and you're not closing them, and it gives you an error on the calculator.
Okay.
If you really want to avoid them kind of errors, you can use that alpha y and put it in just like a fraction. And then if you notice the difference, when I simplified the fraction form, it gave me the answer in a fraction form. And I didn't have to turn a decimal back into a fraction and all that. You're going to like it once y'all
Yes,
find
sir.
everything is on there, you know it?
Yeah.
All right, so that gave me something like, what I say, 13 over 17. So 13 divided by 17. And then we move on. All right, so let's see. F of x is going to be negative 4x plus 5. G of x is a x squared minus 2. They want me to find g minus f of x. So you got to watch them when they do that g minus f's because they're switching the order around on us. See, they gave me the f first, but then they want this to be the g first. So g minus f, anytime I got subtraction, I put both of those in parentheses when I first start. So since the g is first, I'm going to put the g here first, which is the x squared minus 2. And then the f, which was second, will be a negative 4x plus 5. Sadly, we can't do these problems on the calculator because of the variables. So what we got to do, since you're subtracting, the first thing to do is drop all the parentheses and distribute that negative through both of these in the second parentheses. So that would give you the x squared minus 2 from the first parentheses. But y'all, now I'm subtracting a negative. So anytime you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. And then subtracting a positive is going to stay negative. So it's like negative times negative is positive. Negative times positive is negative. All right, at that point, the only thing we can do is add any like terms if we got them. So I'm going to put mine in what we call descending order. So the biggest exponent is the x squared. Then let's say I got the positive 4x. Then I do have like terms that are numbers. So a negative 2 and a negative 5 would give me a negative 7. So remember, up here you were multiplying two negatives, made a positive. But here you're adding two negatives, and that's going to stay a negative. All right, where's mine? So I would put that in there, the x squared plus 4x minus 7. And then remember, to square it, you got this little button down here on the bottom. Just click it, and then you square that, arrow over. I had what, a plus 4x, and then minus my 7. All right, then I would move on. Now remember on that one, you cannot get a single number answer on that because they didn't give me a number to put in for that x, okay? All right, so let me write this one down. F of x is going to be x squared minus 9. G of x is 2 minus x. I'm going to find f minus g of a 7. So y'all, this one's similar to the last problem, except guess what? This time, whoops, I got all crooked here. This time, they did give me a number to put into this one. So f minus g of 7 will be my f minus my g. And then for every x, I'm going to put a 7. So f was x squared minus 9. That's going to be 7 squared minus 9. That's my f part. Then my g was 2 minus x. Well, that'll be 2 minus x, which is 7. So we put a 7 in for both x's and then put our stuff here. Now, I got to work inside both parentheses before I can subtract. So on this one, 7 squared is 49 minus my 9. That's going to be minus 2 minus 7 would be what? A negative 5. All right, let's see what we get now. 49 minus 9 in the first parentheses is 40. Now, since there's nothing else to do, I can drop parentheses. And then what's going to happen here? You're subtracting a negative 5. So when you subtract a negative, that's going to make that a positive. And then 40 plus 5 is 45. Okay? Remember, you can do that on a calculator. I would probably, at this point, plug all that in and be done. All right, let's see. Back to the test screen. All right, so that I'd put in, what do we get, 45, I think. And then move on.
And Mr. Eugene, you did say that the previous question, number 12, we could not use the calculator because they did not give us an X value.
Right. Because it just said find what? G minus f of x. To where this one had f minus g of a 7, so I was able to put my 7 in.
Okay.
All righty, so let me see what they're giving me here. F of x equals 1 over x minus 3. G of x is 2x to the third. So they want me to find the domain of the sum, difference, and product. So the sum, difference, and product. Now, I think I took this one off the test, actually. There were some long ones that I took off. So my test is only 20 questions. I think this is one of them. But if I was going to add these together, so f plus g would equal my f, which is 1 over x minus 3, plus my g.
Can we see your screen?
I did it again. Yeah, y'all keep me on that now. All right, so let me do this again. So f of x is 1 over x minus 3. And g of x, y'all, was 2x to the third. So I'm going to do the sum first. So f plus g of x, if I was adding that, that would be the 1 over x minus 3 plus the 2x to the third. So, y'all, here's a question. If I was going to add these and I'm looking at domain values, the only thing that bothers me is the fraction. This one don't have a fraction, so we don't care on the domain. It could be all real numbers for that one. But this one does have a fraction, and we know that that x minus 3 on that fraction cannot equal 0. So what I would do to that is add 3 so that x cannot equal a positive 3. So that's going to be for my adding. If I was going to subtract them, I would do the same thing, right? 1 over x minus 3 minus 2x to the third. Well, if you're subtracting them, that don't bother me, but this fraction does again. And once again, on the fraction, you got an x minus 3 on the bottom. So we got to say the x minus 3 cannot equal 0 again. Solve that one by adding 3. So for both of these got the same domain. X cannot equal a 3 for both of those because of the fractions. Y'all, what's going to happen when I multiply these? F times g of x. That's going to equal my f, which is 1 over x minus 3, times my g, which is 2x to the third. And I think I heard someone say that. It's going to be what?
3. X cannot equal 3.
Yeah, same thing, because the only thing that's bothering us is that fraction again. So do that and get that 3 again. So let's go back and see how they wanted this put in. Let's see if they wanted interval notation or did they want me to do... Oh, no, we're just doing the same thing. So right here, since we got x cannot equal 3, you got to go in here and click it. and then actually put x. I think they got a cannot equal sign down here on the bottom. So hit that, and then your 3. And then you do the same thing here. X, use that cannot equal 3. And then down here, x cannot equal 3. Okay, so all 3 of them are going to be the same basically when you got to find the sum, a difference, and a product, okay? And we were just looking for the domain. We didn't have to work it and simplify it. They just wanted to know what was that domain going to be, okay? All right, so then we're moving on. Some of these aren't bad. They just were sort of long, so I took some of them off of here. Now, this one I didn't mind, so let's see. I got f of x is what, 4x minus 9? G of x is 9x minus 18. We want the domain of f divided by g. All right, so let's go to that. I'm going to make sure I got your screen this time. All right, so f divided by g would be the f, which was 4x minus 9, over the g, which is the 9x minus 18. Okay, so since it's a fraction, I'm definitely worried about the bottom of my fraction not equaling 0. So set the 9x minus 18 not equal to 0, y'all, and solve that. So we're going to add the 18. So 9x cannot equal 18, and then divide by 9. So that's telling us what? X cannot equal a positive 2. If I put a 2 in for x, 2 times 9 is 18. 18 minus 18 is 0. And anything divided by 0 is undefined. Right? Watch the calculator. 4 divided by 0. Cannot do it, okay? So what we got to do? Go back to the test, I guess. And put in a... So the same thing on that. You just come in and say x cannot equal positive 2. So those 2 problems were pretty much the same. Didn't have to do a lot of work, just play with your domain, okay? All right, y'all, let me write this one. F of x is going to be 5x plus 1. G of x is going to be x to the 3rd. I'm finding f of g of a negative 2. So remember, this is the composition stuff we were doing. That's the composition operator, remember? We hit them in what, 9.1, I think it was. But remember, this really means f of g of a negative 2, which means you're first going to find what g of negative 2 equals. Once we figure out what g of negative 2 equals, we're going to put that into the f. So g of negative 2 will be the g equation, x to the 3rd. In place of the x, I'm going to put a negative 2 and raise that to the 3rd power. So calculator knocks them out pretty quick. So I'm going to put my negative 2 in parentheses. I'm going to use the caret key, I call it. Looks like an upside down V to get my exponent. And then my exponent was a 3, it looks like. So that's going to do negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is a negative 8. So since g of negative 2 gave me a negative 8, this negative 8 now goes into the f equation, which means you're going to find me f of that negative 8. Right? So negative 2 into g, that gave me negative 8. Negative 8 now goes into the f, which will be 5 times x, which is negative 8, plus 1. So let's see what we get. 5 times negative 8 is negative 40 plus 1. That's going to be what, a negative 39? Okay, so put 1 in, get that answer, put it into that other equation, okay? Now be careful. If this would have been g of f, I'd have had to done the f first and put that answer into the g. So you got to watch that order on these. All right, so I got what, negative 39 on that one. I can find my negative key. All righty. Then I'll move on to the next. Oh no, I didn't want it. Dang it. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to move on. All right, so 17. Oh, okay, here was the good one. I took this one off for sure because it was too much work for a test. And then g of x is 1 over x. So I'm finding f of g of x. So I'm going to find f of g, g of f, and then the domains. Y'all, this one was so much work, I took it off of this test, but we're going to work them. Oh, actually, let's do something real quick. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to pause this. So I'm going to skip this, and I took this one off the test. So I'm going to go to number 18. So this is showing 25 questions, but your test is going to be 20 questions, is it, okay? Let's see, 18. All right, so this one says, determine if it's 1-to-1. So you would use the horizontal line. So I'm going to draw this one in my calculator real quick. So let me go to y equals. What's on top of 8? And on bottom is a x squared minus 4. All right, so I'm going to go to the calculator real quick. So that was the function, so I'm going to put it in so it'll look like what they had. All right, so to tell if it's 1-to-1, you would run a horizontal line down the graph. But y'all notice, when I run this horizontal line, it's intersecting it on 2 spots. Since it's intersecting it more than once, this is not 1-to-1. Okay, so vertical lines check to see if it's a function. Horizontal lines check to see if it's 1-to-1. All right, so we would go back to that one. And we would just put a no for it, okay? And then move on.
Did we skip over number 17, Mr. Eugene? Because I just got back in.
Yeah, I might do it at the end. I took it off the test, so it's a real long one. Okay. So I might do it at the end.
Yes, sir. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're good. All right, so this one says, what's that? F of x equals 2 over x plus 7. So if you want to see if it's 1-to-1, go to graph that real quick. So I'm going to clear that. I'm going to do alpha y equals and put my 2 on top. And then bottom is
go to your calculator.
Okay, okay. All right, so I've got my 2 over x plus 7 in there. I just want to see the graph to see if it's 1-to-1. So I'm just going to hit graph. And if you notice, if I come down that, it's only intersecting it everywhere once. Now it looks like it's level there, but it's really going down and down and down. So this is definitely, yes, 1-to-1. So y'all, this problem in the test will be 1-to-1. So you're going to have to find me an inverse. So here's where we had to find the inverse. So the first thing we did, we replaced the f of x with a y. Then I had to switch x and y around, remember, so that I got x equals 2 divided by y plus 7. You know, what I did on this one, I treated the x like it had a 1 under it, and I'm going to cross multiply this. So cross multiplying this x multiplies by that y plus 7. So that'll be an x times y plus 7. That's going to equal the other top times the first bottom, which will be 2 times 1. Okay. Oh, hang on, that's a y, right? What'd I do? This is the y plus 7. So x times y plus 7, somehow I put an x plus y there and my mind went bad. Now, you could distribute that x if you want to. That's one way to do this. But what I'm going to do, since I'm solving it for that y, instead of multiplying that x through, I'm just going to divide that x on both sides so that that x cancels and I get a y plus 7. And since y plus 7 is all that's left, I don't need the parentheses anymore. On the right side, you got 2 times 1 is 2 divided by the x. Now, you got one more move to get to y by itself, and that's to subtract 7 from both sides. So you're going to get your y. 7's cancel. You cannot do nothing with this, so that's just going to be a 2 over x minus your 7. Last step we said was what? Replace the y with f inverse of x notation, and then you're going to get what? A 2 over x minus 7. Next, we'll have this part. All we're going to do is put in our answer, okay? So let me see that one. So here,
Those are hard.
those are trickier, ain't they?
I always get lost at the multiplying, the third step. When you multiply the x into the y plus 7, I never understand what happens there.
Right. So let me show you another way to do that one then. So I'm going to go back to my calculator. So another way you could do this, I did this one. Over here, you could distribute that because a lot of y'all like to distribute. If you distributed, x times y would be a xy plus x times 7 would be a 7x. All of that's going to equal the 2. So if you did it that way, you'd want to get the xy by itself. So you would subtract that 7x from both sides. So watch what will happen. You got the xy. Over here, you're just going to get 2 minus 7x. So we're getting similar. Now watch what happens. Since I want that y to be 1y, at this point, you got to divide everybody by the x. So the 2 gets divided by the x, and then that 7x gets divided by the x. But notice what's going to happen. The x is canceled. You get the y. That's going to equal. Right here, 2 divided by x, you can't do nothing with that. And then it's going to be minus. But look right here. 7x divided by the x. These x's will cancel. And all that's left is your 7. So
no, I like it that way. That makes more sense.
Okay, so either way, y'all can do these either way. This way is if you're lazy about distributing, you could just divide the x and then subtract the 7. But if you're not lazy about distributing, distribute it, get rid of your parentheses, and then try to get that y by itself. That's what's good about math. There's always usually another way to do something if y'all don't like it one way, right? And then, oh yeah, I would put what, my -7 there. I forgot that. And then y'all, moving on.
Makes sense.
Oh, I didn't do that. My bad. So it's going to be 1-to-1 for sure. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. 4x plus 3y equals 34. 3x plus 4y equals 36. All right, so let's go to my screen. So here's a question. Any of y'all doing this by hand? Or are y'all doing it on the calculator only?
I tend to switch back and forth.
So I'll knock this out both ways. How about that? So we'll do it by hand, and then we'll check and see what we want to do on that calculator. Oh, snap. But here's the question. X's or Y's do I want to get rid of? And hell, they look the same to me, don't they? Both of them got 4s and 3s. So I'm going to try to get rid of the Y's. I'm going to eliminate the Y's. But notice, everything's positive. So I got to at least make one of my Y's negative and one of them positive. And then I got to find a number that the 3 and the 4 both go into so that I can change both of these rows. So the smallest number that I could find with a 3 and a 4 would be, what, a 12?
12. Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do is make these rows both equal 12 in the middle. And remember, one of them's got to be negative, one of them's going to be positive. So the first one I'll make positive. So to make that 3 a 12, I'm going to multiply everybody by 4. So that'll give me 4 times 4 is 16x. Plus 3 times 4 gives me 12y. And then that's bigger than my head can do. So 34 times 4 is 136. Now, this one has to be a negative 12y. So since it's a positive 4, I'm going to multiply everybody by a negative 3. Because remember, one of the y's has to be positive, one has to be negative. So let's see what the negative 3 does. Negative 3 times 3 is a negative 9x. Negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12y. And then let's see, 36 times that negative 3 is a negative 108. But look what will happen now. Those y's, one's positive 12, one's negative 12, they're going to cancel. So let's see what this gives me. 16 minus 9 is a 7x. The y's canceled. 136 minus 108 be what, 28? So that's going to give me 28. So now we can solve that for the x by dividing both sides by the 7. So that I know for sure x is going to be 4. So I'm going to have my ordered pair. X is 4. Now I got to take that 4 and substitute into either one of those equations to get the y value. So I'm going to use the first one. I'm going to back substitute. 4 times x, which was 4, plus 3 times y has to equal 34. All right, so here we go. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3y equal 34. I now need to get to 3y by itself, so we're going to subtract 16. So let's see what that's going to do. That's going to give me what? 34 minus 16 is 18. And y'all, here we go. Last step, divide by 3. So the y is going to be 6. So they got to be an ordered pair. So I got 4 for the x, 6 for my y, and I got them in my parentheses. So that one, and I'll show you when you're looking at their answers. notice right here it says type in ordered pair. So you can use the one they got down here. And then what was my X? 4. And then arrow over, my Y was 6. Whoops, what'd I do? I guess I didn't click in it right. Then put your 6, okay? All right, then you would be moving on. I bet it's a 3x3 now. Yep, there it is, the big old 3x3. So let me write this one down. What's that, a 5x minus a y plus a z equals negative 18. 4x plus 2y minus 3z equals 11. And then x minus 3y plus 2z equals a negative 23. Oh, I forgot to do the last one on calculator, but I'll definitely show you how to do this one on the calculator. So I'm going to start out by doing it on the calculator, and then we'll do it by hand, okay? So to start out on the calculator, you would have to hit second x negative 1 to bring up your matrix. So let me get y'all to my calculator screen. So second x negative 1 brings up the matrix, and you got to go to edit. So on edit, I hit enter. Now I got 3 rows by 4 columns, so that part's good. So 3 enter, 4 enter. Now I got to put all the numbers. No letters, only numbers. So I got a 5 for the x, negative 1 for the y, 1 for the z, negative 18 for the answer. Next row, I got a 4 for the x, 2 for the y, negative 3 for the z, 11 for the answer. Then I got a 1 for the x, negative 3 for the y, 2 for the z, negative 23 for that answer, and enter. So remember, I put all that in there and then I quit that screen. Now I want that RREF. So to get it, I hit second, x negative 1 for the matrix, arrow over to math, and once you get to math, you're going to arrow all the way down till you get to RREF. Hit enter. So now I got my RREF on the screen. I now got to go get that matrix we made. So once again, hit second, x negative 1. I put everything in matrix A, so I just hit enter on that. And y'all finally hit enter to get our answers. So this is telling me x should be a negative 2, y should be 5, and z should be negative 3. See, it depends on which row the number's in as to what the answer is. So since x's were first, then the y's were second, and then the z's were in the last row, okay? Now, I'm going to do this by hand. So I would have to figure out which one of these variables to get rid of. And y'all, I'll tell you, it wouldn't make any of these would be fairly easy. So I guess since I did the y's a while ago, I'm going to eliminate the z's first. So I'll eliminate the z and turn it into a 2x3, and then I'll figure out what number next, okay? So I'm going to eliminate the z's. So notice I got a 1z and a negative 3z. So first, I'm going to multiply that whole first row by 3. That way I get a 3z. That'll cancel with my negative 3z. So I'm going to change row 1. So I'll make this a 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to change 1 and add the 2. So change 1, add the 2. So multiply everybody here by 3. So you get 15x minus 3 times 1 is 3y plus 3 times 1 is 3z. That's going to equal negative 18 times 3, which is a negative 54. Add that to row 2, which was a 4x plus a 2y minus 3z equal to 11. So remember, once I add those, I'll call that row 4. So 15 and 4 give me 19x. Negative 3 and 2 give me negative 1y. The z's cancel. And y'all, negative 54 plus 11 to be negative 43. So that's one of my 2 equations I need. Now, here's the trick. I must use row 3 with either one of these rows here to get rid of my z still. So since this one has a 2, I'm going to take row 1 and multiply them by a negative 2. That way I'll have a 2z and a negative 2z. That'll cancel. So once again, I'm going to change 1 and add 2, 3 this time. So if I multiply everybody by negative 2, 5 times negative 2 is a negative 10x. Negative 1 times negative 2 is a positive 2y. 1 times negative 2 is a negative 2z, all equal to the negative 18 times negative 2, which is 36. So I changed row 1. I'm now going to add to row 3, which was x minus 3y plus 2z equal negative 23. When I get done, that'll be my row 5. All right, y'all, so here we go. Negative 10 and 1 is a negative 9x. 2y and negative 3y is a negative 1y. The z's canceled. And 36 and negative 23 give me what? A positive 13. So what you would do is put these 2 rows together. 19x minus y equals negative 43. Negative 9x minus y equals 13. So that was your 4 and your 5. So let's figure out what to get rid of, and I'm thinking I want to get rid of the y's on this. So I'm going to eliminate the y. Now, to eliminate the y, I'm going to multiply one of these rows by a negative 1. So how about I'm going to take the second row, multiply by negative 1, which means the top row is going to stay the same. Multiply this row by negative 1 is going to change all the signs. Negative times negative makes that a positive 9x. Negative times negative makes that a positive y. And then a positive times a negative makes that a negative 13. All right, y'all, adding these should get rid of my y's. So 19 plus 9 is 28 x's. The y's canceled. And let's see what we get here. Negative 43 and negative 13 is what? A negative 56. So I'm now down to one equation with one variable. To solve that, we're going to divide both sides by 28 so that x equals a negative 2. Hey, we need that on the calculator. There's my negative 2. So if nothing else, I can sort of use it to guide me, right? All right, so back substitute that negative 2. So I'm going to take one of these 2 equations and put a negative 2 in for the x. So I'm just going to use this one. So I got 19 times x, which is negative 2, minus a y has to equal negative 43. All right, so here we go. 19 and negative 2 is a negative 38 minus y equals negative 43. I would add 38 to both sides. So y'all look at that. Negative y is going to equal a negative 5. But remember, I can't have a negative y, so I got to divide by the negative 1. Like signs make that a positive y. Like signs make that a positive 5. So I got negative 2, positive 5. Calculator's got negative 2, positive 5. So now I'm going to back substitute into the, hell, I'll do the first equation. I got 5 times x, which was -2, minus y, which was 5, plus z has to equal -18. All right, here we go. 5 times -2 is -10, minus 5 plus z equals -18. Add these like terms. -10 and -5 give you -15, plus z equals -18. And then y'all, the last step, add 15 to both sides. And there you go. Z, -18, +15 gives me a -3, which was what we had on our calculator. So our answer would be -2 for the x, 5 for the y, and then -3 for our z. And it has to be put inside these parentheses, okay? And I think it'll actually tell you that on there. Let's see. No, they got the parentheses for you, so all you got to do is come put your 3 numbers in. So -2. What do we get next? 5. And then a -3. Okay, so that one, they were nice and gave you the parentheses. All right, so believe it or not, this is the same kind of problem. The only difference, we got to figure out our equations. Okay, so let's see, we got 1 egg, 1 pizza, okay, hold on, 1 egg, 1 cup, so let me write that over. All right, so 1 egg, 1 cupcake, 1 pizza. 1 egg, 1 cupcake, 1 pizza equal 297 milligrams of cholesterol. 3 cupcakes, 4 pizza. That child ate 82 milligrams of cholesterol. And then finally, 2 eggs, 1 cupcake. A child has 562 milligrams of cholesterol. All right, so let me go to my main writing pad. All right, so child eats 1 egg, 1 cupcake, and 1 pizza is 297 milligrams. If a child eats 3 cupcakes and 4 slices of pizza, it was 82 milligrams. And if they ate 2 eggs and 1 cupcake, 562 milligrams. So I'm going to put this in order. My eggs will be like my X's. My cupcakes will be like my Y's. My pizzas will be my Z's. And then over here will be my answers. So the first equation was 1 egg, 1 cupcake, 1 pizza equaled 297. Oh, the second row didn't have no eggs, so you better put a 0 in place of that. Then you had 3 cupcakes, 4 slices of pizza was 82 milligrams. Then the last one had 2 eggs, 1 cupcake, no pizza, so that'll be a 0. And then it was 562. So in the matrix, you can punch these numbers by hand. I'll put X's and Y's by those, okay? So first I wanted to show you how to do it on the matrix. So we would go to second, X -1 to pull up the matrix, go over to edit and hit enter. This is still 3 rows by 4 columns, so enter on those. Now we want to put our numbers. So we had a 1, 1, 1, 297. Next row I had a 0, 3, 4, 82. Last row I had a 2, 1, 0, and a 562. So remember, I had all my numbers in. I'm going to quit that screen. I'm going to go get the RREF again. So go to second, x negative 1, arrow over to math, and then arrow down to RREF. And hit enter. Now, go get the matrix, second, x negative 1, enter for A, because that's where I put all my data. So now when I hit enter, it looks like, since this is in the first row was my eggs, so eggs equal 272 milligrams. Second row was my cupcakes, so one cupcake is 18 milligrams, and then the last row was the pizza. One pizza is 7 milligrams. Okay, so we're about to do this one by hand, so let me write these numbers down real quick. So 1x plus 1y plus 1z equals 297. The next one was 3y plus 4z equaled 82. And then I had 2x's plus 1y equaled 562. So let me do this one by hand. So I got 1, 2, and 3. Now, you'll like what I'm about to do to this one. So I'm going to eliminate these z's. Now notice on this one already has the z gone. So once I eliminate the z and get me an equation, this automatically becomes the second equation because it don't have a z, okay? So to get rid of the z's, since this z is a positive 4 and that's a positive 1, I've got to multiply the whole first row by a negative 4. So multiply 1 by negative 4 and add to row 2. So you get negative 4x minus 4y minus 4z. Ooh, let's see, 297 times, what was it, negative 4 is going to give me a negative 1,188. Now, this row is a 3y plus 4z equals 82. So let's add those. That negative 4x comes down. Negative 4y plus 3y gives you negative 1y. The z's canceled. Negative 1188 plus 82 is going to give us a negative 1,106. All right, so notice I now got to use row 3, but row 3 already has a z gone. So my next system will be this negative 4x minus y equals negative 1106. 2x plus y equals 562. Now, what I like about this that was nice, those y's automatically are canceling. So negative 4 and 2 give you negative 2x. Negative 1,106 plus 562 will give you a negative 544. All right, remember last step, divide by negative 2. So that x, which is my eggs, let's divide that by negative 2. I get 272. So I can't remember what I got while going to the calculator. Let's arrow up and see. Well, there it is, 272. So let me arrow back down and get back down here now. All righty, so since I know the x, I'm going to back substitute. And look here, I got x's and y's. So I'm going to back substitute into that equation. Remember, it don't matter which one you pick, it's which one you think is the easiest for you. So I'm going to use the third one. 2 times my x, which is 272, plus a y has to equal 562. All right, y'all, so let's see. What's 2 times 272? Gives you 544. Plus y equals 562. And in the last step, subtract that 544. So that y equals 562 minus 544. It's going to give me 18, and I think that's what we had a while ago. Now, I know the x and I know the y. I could use this equation, or hell, I can use this one because I know the y. I can get the z really quick. So I'm just going to back substitute into that one because it's only got 2 parts. So 3 times y, which is 18, plus 4z is going to equal 82. All right, so let's see. 3 times 18 is 54, plus 4z equals 82. Next, I would subtract 54. Ooh, running out of paper. Let's see. 82 minus, what did we say, 54? It's going to give me 28. And y'all watch this. Divide by 4. Z will equal 28 divided by 4 is 7. So let me arrow up. I think I had that one go right. 272. Where's that at? Okay, there we go. 282, 272, 18, and a positive 7. Same thing we got. But now watch this one on the math lab. When you put this one in, it asks them individually. So like the quantity of cholesterol in the eggs, that was 272. Then the cupcake, which was my Y's. Oh, come on. My Y was 18. And then my pizza ended up being the 7. Oh, egg cupcake pizza. Yeah. Okay. And then you would move on. So those not too bad. You just got to sort of keep up with what you're trying to solve. All right, this one has 3x minus 5y is less than or equal to a negative 20. All right, so we'll work this one and then we'll figure out what to do on that calculator. So these are the ones where I was shading. So when I'm done, this graph will have some kind of shaded area because there's a lot of things that can make that less than or equal to that negative 20. So the easiest way to do this is solve it for that y. So to solve that for the y, I would subtract 3x from both sides. So y'all, that brings down to negative 5y is going to be less than or equal. These are not like terms, so I'm just going to put my x first and then my number. Now that needs to be 1y instead of negative 5y. So now we need to divide everybody by negative 5. Which means I'm dividing by negative. The less than equals now becomes a greater than or equals. You got to reverse that when you divide by negatives. So that y will be greater than or equal to, that's going to be a positive 3/5 x because the 2 negatives. And these are 2 negatives, so that'll be a positive 4. So at that point, you could graph this. Now, at that point, I could go to y equals and put in 3 divided by 5 x plus 4. Okay? Now, if you want some numbers to plot, hit second graph. And there's me some numbers. Look, I got 0, 4, so let's do that one. So I'll go 5 on this. Now, I do know one thing. Since that's a positive 3/5, this line better be going uphill left to right. If that was a negative, it would go downhill. All right, so one point I'm going to plot is at 0, 4. So starting at 0, go up to 4. And now, if I go this way, I'm going to get my numbers too big. So I'm going to go to the other way and find. So that's a nice number, -5, 1. So over here at -5, I would go up 1. Now, do I want a solid line or a dotted line? Well, since we got an equals under here, we want a solid line. Now we got to figure out, do we want to paint it and shade it above or paint it and shade it below? Since that's greater than shades above, so we would come in and shade all that on the top. Now y'all watch this. I got the y equals in here. Remember, the calculator will shade if you arrow all the way left. Now, see where it's blinking? When I hit enter, watch what happens. It changes. Right there is a triangle above. If you're above, you would hit that one and that'd be your triangle. Now, if it was less than, you would hit enter again and it would give you a triangle on the bottom. So I need the one that was on top for greater than, so I'm going to keep hitting enter until I get that triangle back. Right there, at that point, hit graph, and hopefully it looks like what we just did. And there you go. Now watch this. On these answers, when you do that, click this. It's going to pull this up. We want a straight line to start with. Now, this is already on a solid line, but remember, if there was no equals and it was just a less than or greater than, you would have had to went to the dotted line to use, okay? But for mine, I did have equals, so it's a solid line. So remember, I did 0, 4, which was right there. And then what was the other one? -5, 1. So there's -5 and -5, 1. Now, to get this to shade, you click the paint can, and we shade it above. So come over here and shade it above, and it'll color it for you, and then you're done. Hit save and move on. All right, so I think 24 is about the same thing. It might be 2 of them. Or let me see what it was. Oh, this is just x is less than 7. So no work to do on that, and so I'm going to go straight to my graph. Now, when you got an x by itself, it's going to be a vertical line. Now, do I want the line to be solid or dotted? There's no equals under that. That's just a less than. So since it's just a less than, you got to use the dotted line. Okay? Now, here's what you do. Since x is less than 7, you go to 7 on the x-axis, click it, and then go up or down and make another point. Anywhere on that vertical line, make sure you got a vertical line when this is an x over here, okay? Now, less than is either going to shade to the left side or to the right side. So let me grab the paint can. Less than on the x-axis is to the left. So you will shade it to the left and save it. And that being greater than, I'd have went to the other side of that, okay? Now, calculator can't do the X ones like that. Had that been a Y, we could have done it, but we cannot do the ones with just the X, okay? All right, then let's move on to the last one. I think this is the system. So y is greater than or equal to a x plus 4. Y is less than or equal to a 4 minus x. All right, so we definitely want to do that by hand probably. Now, the answer to this will be the shaded region that gets double shaded, okay? So I can do this by hand real quick, and then I'm going to show you the calculator. So I'm going to go out about 5 again. So that's my X, and that's my Y. So I'm going to plot the first one first and make that line, okay? So Y is greater than or equal to an X plus 4. So remember, for each line, I got to find some points. So I'm going to use a 0 and a 1 for my X's. 0 plus 4 equals 4. 1 plus 4 equals 5. So the first line has a point at 0, 4, which is up here at 0, 4. And then I got a point at 1, 5. Now, that one has equals on it, so that line will be solid coming down through here. And it's greater than, so that one would shade above. And shade like that. Now, I would do the other line, which is Y less than or equal to 4 minus X. And I'm going to get 2 points on that. I'm going to use 0 and 1 again. They're pretty easy. 4 minus 0 is 4. And then 4 minus 1 is 3. So this one has a point at 0, 4, which is the same. And then at 1, 3. This one has equals, so it's going to be a solid line also coming down through there. It's less than shades below the line, so I would shade below that line. So if you notice, the double shaded area is going to be this area from here to here where I've got it shaded both ways, okay? Now, watch this. Oh, no, let's do this one on the calculator real quick. So go to on. I'm going to go to Y equals again and clear that. So let me do the first line. X, whoops. First line was X plus 4. Now arrow all the way left. So the X plus 4 one was greater than, so we want the triangle that is above. All right, so now I got my above triangle. I'm going to go down to the next line. And it was 4 minus X. I'm going to go all the way left. And on that one is less than, so hit enter until we get the triangle below. So I got my triangle above, triangle below. I'm going to hit enter. And hopefully it sort of shades double like we did. And look at it. Here's your double shaded area. And y'all watch this. What's nice, I think this one should have actually 4 pictures to choose from on MATLAB. So our double shaded area was like B in this area. So you would click the B and then be done. All righty, so let me stop that share. All right, y'all, so remember, 20 questions on the test. I did 24 of them. 17 for sure is not on there. And I took 4 more off of it for you. Mostly I took off some of the longer ones. Well, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to open this test up. After this class, I'm going to open the test up. It will not be due. Final due date is Sunday night at midnight. Now, I probably wouldn't wait till then to do it, but yeah, I give y'all on that first test, I give you a little leniency because people getting on late and stuff, and then I had people drop out of class that shouldn't have been dropped for non-payment, so trying to get them back in. But yeah, I usually give you a few days to work them. Now, I will start test 2 material tomorrow morning. Okay, so whether you've done that test yet or not, we're starting test 2 material tomorrow.
So once you open it, you can't get out of it and then go back. You can just you just do it all at once.
Right. once you get on it, it's going to give you I think I got them set for 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, that's
Well, 120 minutes, it might be 2 hours, whatever that equals. But
Yeah.
the only way it'll let you come out and on a test is if you get knocked off like by a storm or something. It'll let you get your access back. So if you, I don't know how I would do that, but I would probably just make sure I had my time and just knocked it out then.
okay.
But if you do get on it and something happens and it won't let you get back into it, you got to email me and I can open it back up.
Okay.
On that bonus work that we're doing for you, what, besides our name, do we need to put anything else on it?
Oh, just your working, that'll be good.
Okay. Make sure
And do
you
we
didn't put
just
class or
email
anything.
that to you? How do we get it to you?
You can scan it on a printer and send it to me. You can use your scanner on your phone memo thingy and send it.
Okay.
I was working it out in Word and then just sending that right back to you.
Yeah, that's what I would
worked
do.
it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Is the bonus work, is that in the in Blackboard?
I sent y'all an email the night before last, I think. I sent y'all email. So look in your email and it'll say test 1 bonus, I think.
Okay, thank you.
It was just 3 problems and it's bonus for the test and it's up to 5 points, which don't seem a lot, but y'all, that's a half a letter grade on a college algebra test.
Okay.
So if you get them all right and get the bonus, you can get a total of 105 on this test.
Sweet, thank you.
All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to end our meeting and I will send